LBC Money Hour.
With Scottish Widows. Taking on your future together.
LBC, I'm Clive Bull. This is the Money Hour, and thanks to Scottish Widows, right now we're going to have a look at pensions and how they are affected by Covid-19 as well. And I'm joined by Robert Cochran, the lead retirement expert from Scottish Widows. Robert, good evening to you.
Good evening, Clive.
So let's talk a bit more about pensions then and the effect of the coronavirus, Covid-19, on pensions.
Yeah, so I guess there's a couple of things to think about here. So the first thing is, if you're in receipt of your state pension or a regular pension payment from a final salary scheme, or indeed an annuity, so if you're an older person who's in receipt of a pension, there is no change. You'll still receive your guaranteed amount. Where you will have seen the effect of Covid-19 is where you're saving towards a pension. Then your fund value might have been moving up and down a bit. There's been a lot of what they call volatility in investment markets where most pensions are invested. So some people will have seen their values fluctuate a bit more than normal. But I guess the key thing to remember is that a pension's a long-term investment vehicle, and volatility is something we expect to see in the markets.
What about those who are on furlough? I mean, there's literally millions of people now who've been furloughed. How does that affect their pension contributions? Do they continue?
Everybody understands that the furlough scheme includes payments to replace the earnings that people were getting, but the government also introduced an element for pensions as well. One thing you really need to remember here, though, is that in order to get this employer contribution to your pension plan, you're likely to have to continue your own contributions. Now, if you've been furloughed, your contribution level will probably have come down. But it's important to keep making these lower contributions in order to benefit from the employer contributions and the tax relief.
Is that something you have to actively organise yourself, or would that automatically happen?
No, that will happen automatically. Through your auto-enrolment scheme, it'll happen automatically through your employer.
What about the self-employed, particularly those who are maybe not making any money? Can you take a break if you've got your own pension and you really can't afford to be putting money into it at the moment?
Yes. Unfortunately, our own research has shown that over 3 million people have stopped or reduced their pension contributions as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. Now, if you're not making any money, then of course you can stop making payments to your pension plan. And under the most modern contracts, there'll be no charge for doing this. Most plans can be stopped, or they'll allow something called a contribution holiday. And remember, with self-employed people, many of them don't actually pay regular contributions, but they pay into a pension only when they're doing their accounts. So they contribute on a one-off basis, on an annual basis.
And the other thing that people have been asking about, I've certainly had calls about this as well, is can you just dip into your pension pot? If you are having financial difficulty at the moment, again, as many people are, is that a possible solution?
It depends on what age you are, Clive. So we know that in some countries they have relaxed the rules here a little bit, for example in Australia, but in the UK you can only dip into your pension if you're aged over 55. And there's some quite complicated tax rules about how you can do it, but if you're over 55, essentially you've got a pot of money that you can access.
So it's worth looking at, but you've really got to think about it carefully.
Yes, because you remember you've been saving into that money to look after you for the rest of your life. And if you are going to do it, be very careful about how you do it, but take advantage of something free, which is Pensions Wise, which is a guidance and advice solution from the government, so they can talk you through what your options are.
Anything else you think people need to be really thinking about in terms of pensions during this pandemic?
We always talk about the same three questions, really, when people are looking at their pensions. What have I got? Is it enough? And what can I do next? And people have had a bit more time in their hands just now, so maybe it's a good time to review that what have I got piece. So maybe in lockdown you could actually find out where all your pensions are, because it's not until you find out what you've got that you can actually make any plans for your future.
Robert, thank you very much. Thanks to Robert Cochran there, and thanks to Scottish Widows.